All right, this lesson is going to be about consecutive integers, and it's some more word problems that you need to be familiar with. Pulling up some different types of word problems that you need to be able to do. This is one of them. Your homework is not out of your textbook. It's on a easy test maker quiz that you should be able to find from the same place that you downloaded this. Now, let's look at a couple of things. First of all, integers are like counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be negative or positive. They have to be solid numbers. There's no decimals. There's no fractions. So if you're doing these and end up with an answer that is a fraction or a decimal, you've messed up. But you can have a negative. You can also have 0. Now consecutive just means in order. So let me just sort of do a mini background, not background here, but some pre-information. We are never going to know our starting number. So we're going to always call your first number x. And you're going to be given a problem that will say find 3 consecutive integers, find 4 consecutive integers. If our first number is unknown, which it will be, we're going to call it x. Now, operationally, how do I get from the first integer to the second consecutive? Consecutive just means in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how would I get from 1 to the next consecutive integer, which would be 2? I add 1. And then, how do I get to the next consecutive integer? I'm going to add 2. And then the next consecutive integer, I'm going to add 3. So if I'm going from one number to the next number, I'm going to add 1, add 2, add 3. And that'll kind of make sense as we go, hopefully, in a minute. So consecutive integers, your first number is always going to be x. And then to get to our next consecutive integer, we're going to add 1, then we're going to add 2, then we're going to add 3. So let's jump into one of these so you can sort of see how to use this information and exactly what it means. So here is how these are going to look. Find 2 consecutive integers such that twice the smaller diminished by the larger is 71. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. The first thing we need to pull out of here, remember like we talked about in class or in our face-to-face time, is writing down everything you know. So the first thing I know is I have 2 consecutive integers. So I'm going to go ahead and label a 1 and a 2 because I'm going to have 2 integers. I don't know what those integers are, but I know that the first one is going to be called x. And if they're consecutive, that means you add 1 to get to the next one. If I start at 3, I add 1 to get to 4. If I start at 21, I add 1 to get to 25. So my first number is going to be labeled as x. Then my second consecutive integer will be labeled as x plus 1. Now here's the thing, one thing you need to remember is that this is one entity. So when I begin to plug that in, I need to make sure I put it in parentheses. So you don't lose that as one thing. And now, just like we were doing in our face-to-face time, we take this one piece at a time. Twice the smaller. Twice means 2 times. And obviously the smaller is going to be just x. Diminished by just means is. Nope, that's not true. Diminished by, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry, I was reading here. Diminished by the larger. Well, diminished means to get smaller. And the larger is going to be x plus 1. Is, there's my is, equals 71. And now I just walk through and solve this for x. Now here is a prime example why you need your parentheses. This x is outside of these parentheses. Remember, operationally, we start inside. If I can't do anything inside, I look outside. And inside, I have an x and a 1. They're not like terms, so I look outside. That negative has to be distributed to everything inside of there. So what I really have is negative x minus 1. Now, 2x, my negative x are like terms. So I can combine them. So 2 minus 1 is 1x. I am going to run a room. I should have written writing smaller. Let's come up here. Move that negative 1 over, and so what I end up with is x equals 72. Now, Go back up to the top, and it says 2 consecutive integers. That means my answer should be both of those numbers. If the first number is 72, the second consecutive integer would be 73. So technically my answer is 72 and 73. Okay, let's do another one. All right, I'm going to kind of go real slow because I want you to be processing through this. So what I want you to do is make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil and be working this with me. If you don't have one, pause this, go get it, get your calculator out, and work this with me as we're going. So the sum of 3 consecutive integers is negative 24. What are the integers? So the first thing I need you to do, well, the first thing you need to do is label 3 consecutive integers. So think for a second and decide what you think those would be labeled. All right, if my first one is always x, then my next consecutive integer would be x plus 1. Then my next one would be x plus 2. So if I have 4, my next integer plus 1 is 5. My next integer, 4 plus 2 is 6. 4, 5, 6. So that's going to get me my consecutive integers by adding x, x plus 1, x plus 2. Now think about how you would set up your equation. Sum of 3 consecutive integers is negative 24. So write down what you think that would look like. All right, the sum of 3 consecutive integers. Well, here's my first one plus my second one. Sum means add, remember, is negative 24. And now I just solve for x. Operationally, we start inside of my parentheses. I can't do anything inside. I look outside. There's a plus outside of both of those parentheses, which means nothing changes, and those parentheses can just drop. Remember, originally write them down in case there's a minus outside of there like there was on the last one. Now, to solve this, I just solve for x. So step 1, simplify what I can. X is 3x. 1 and 2 is 3. I need to move that 3 over. When I do that, it becomes a minus. So negative 24 minus 3 is negative 27. Move the other 3 over and I divide by 3. So negative 27 divided by 3 is negative 9. Now, we need 3 consecutive integers, x, x plus 1, x plus 2. If it's negative 9 on a number line, the next one would be negative 8 and negative 7. And remember, the negatives are working backwards because we're going up, if that makes sense. All right, so there is that one. So hopefully that's making sense. But let's talk about one more thing. Consecutive numbers, right? We just talked about that would be 1, 2, 3, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. And we get from one to the other by adding 1. What happens, though, if I ask you to find consecutive odd or even? Consecutive odd or even? So let's talk about some consecutive odd numbers. 3, 5, 7. Consecutive even. 2, 4, 6. Now on both of these, instead of adding 1, we're adding 2. Whether it's odd or even, we add 2. And then to get from 3 to 7, we would add 4. To get from 2 to 6, we would add 4. And then the third would be plus 6, plus 8. So odd or even, you're going to add 2, then you're going to add 4, then you're going to add 6, and later on, if this got higher than that, you would just continue that. Regardless of if it's odd or even, you add 2, 4, 6. So consecutive integers, you add 1, 2, 3, 4. Consecutive odd or even, you add 2, 4, 6, 8. And a lot of kids forget that even when it's odd, you still add 2. That's not because that's just because to get from here to here, it's 2 spaces. Okay, so odd or even, you're going to add 2 instead of 1. So our next problem says the sum of 3 consecutive even numbers is 294. What are the numbers? So the first thing I need to do is find 3 consecutive even numbers. So I have 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. My first one is always x. And because we're not dealing with consecutive numbers, we're dealing with even, we're going to add 2, then we're going to add 4. Remember, odd or even, we add 2, then we add 4. So there's my first, second, and third integer, or number. Now the problem says the sum of these things is 294. So the sum of them. Now, normally I would put those in parentheses, but I know that I'm adding and it's not going to change anything, so I just left them off. One step ahead. Okay. Any like terms? X's. No x's, so I have 3x plus 6 equals 294. Remember, x plus x plus x is 3x. I'm going to move that 6 over and subtract it. That's going to give me 288. Move the 3 over. Divide by 3. And I believe that is 96. Let me just double check that on my calculator. 288 divided by 3. 96. Now, it wants 3 consecutive even numbers. So 96 plus 2 plus 4, whoops, is 100. So technically, this is my answer. It's asking for all 3 numbers, okay? Let's do another one. All right, this one says, find 3 consecutive odd integers such that the sum of the second and third is thrice the first increased by 15. Now, very few of you have ever probably heard the word thrice. It just means times 3. Twice is times 2. Thrice is times 3. I think in my 44 years of age, I've maybe read that word 4 times outside of these kinds of problems. All right, so first of all, we need 3 consecutive odd integers. We need 3 of them. Our first one is x, and because it's odd, we're going to add 2, then we're going to add 4. Remember, odd or even, we add 2, 4. So x plus 2, x plus 4. Now this is a long one. So take a second, see if you can figure out the formula or the equation, and then we'll do it together. All right. So 3 consecutive odd integers such that the sum of the second and third, the sum of the second and third, remember sum means plus, is thrice, means 3 times. 3 times what? Thrice the first. And it is increased, which means getting bigger, by 15. Now I'm just going to solve this. Inside of my parentheses, there is nothing I can do. I look outside, nothing here, plus sign here, so they just go away. And then this can just be rewritten as 3x. So let's kind of write this a little simpler. X plus 2 plus x plus 4 equals 3x plus 15. Simplify anything we can. So that's 2x plus 6 equals 3x plus 15. Move my 3x over, move my 6 over, and I have 2x minus 3x, which gives me negative 1x. I have 15 minus 6, which is 9. I'm not done because I have this negative 1 I need to move over, and I divide by negative 1, and 9 divided by negative 1 is negative 9. Now, I need the 3 consecutive odd integers, so negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7, plus 2 is negative 5. And sometimes people are confused as to why that's not negative 9, negative 11, negative, well, if you're looking at a number line and you're at negative 9 and you're going up, because we're negatives, we'll go backwards. Okay? Oops, 6, 5. All right, so just remember as negatives, you're going up that number line, not down it. All right, so that's consecutive integers. Take them one piece at a time. I always write this down before I start. I've had students who have written them on the top of their papers before they start working, and that's fine. But for someone like me that's very, very visual, I need to be able to actually see first, second, and third in order to do these. And then just take them one piece at a time like any other word problem. Hey guys, your homework is with this, oh my gosh, my brain just quit working. The link is with this video for you to click on and do the homework problems. If you get stuck, let me know.